what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Footcandle Films. This is our ongoing podcast series where we discuss new films as well as talk about either some movie news or maybe some films you might have missed when they were released a while back. I'm Alan Jackson. With me, as always, my co-host, Chris Fry.
Hello.
And we are with Footcandle Film Society. Today, very exciting show. We're going to be discussing the Iranian film A Separation, followed by some movie news where we're going to be talking about everybody from Tarantino to Spike Lee, Leonardo DiCaprio, a lot of big names we toss around. So stick around for the show, listen to the review, and then feel free to stick around afterwards to hear us talk about some upcoming movie news. Thanks for listening. This is Footcandle Films.
نه خیلی ایشون نه معتاده نه مشکلی داره خیلی هم آدم خوب و سالمی.
پس برای چی میخواد طلاق بگیره؟
برای اینکه ایشون نمیخواد با من بیاد.
من پدرمو نمیتونم ول کنم.
پدر ایشون آلزایمر، اون میفهمه که تو پسرشی؟
من که میفهمم اون پدرمه.
من الان تکلیفم چی میشه حاج آقا؟
هیچی. بفهمه سر زندگیتون.
خداحافظ.
So Chris, we've just seen the film A Separation.
Yes.
Now, for people who are not too familiar with this movie, it is a film that was made in Iran just this past year, 2011. It did win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Picture at the Oscars.
Right.
So keep that in mind because I want to come back to that here in a second.
Okay.
But I want us to talk a little bit about this film. It's fresh on our minds. We just saw it last night. We saw it with a great audience for our film society. Foreign language film, obviously. Can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge for some people.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Well, how did you sleep last night, Alan?
Wow, that's a good question. Not
I think
too
that actually,
good. Not too good.
Yeah, same here.
This film, I'll go ahead and just come around and say it. This film to me was like getting punched in the gut for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I was emotionally drained.
Yes.
At the end of the film. I know we don't want to go. There's a lot you could spoil with this film, which is kind of crazy to think that this kind of low budget foreign language film has a lot of spoilers to it, but there really are.
Yeah. There's
a lot of things we can't really talk about because it does, as you get deeper and deeper into the film and you find out some things that are happening and going on, it's like, wow, you don't know where this film's going to go.
Right.
I guess that's the way I'm trying to say is after the first 5 minutes of this movie, I had no clue where it was going for the next 2 hours.
Right. It's for such a simple sounding film. Obviously, the title kind of gives it away. It's like a separation. Oh, okay. These people are getting separated. They're going to get divorced.
It's a divorce.
Okay. And you're like, no spoiler. Mom wants to leave. Mom wants to leave the country with daughter. Yeah. Dad doesn't want to.
Because he's got his father with Alzheimer's that he's caring for.
Right.
You learn this in the first 5 minutes.
Right.
In a very cool scene, I think, where you have the two of them sitting in front of a judge, but you don't see the judge. They are directly addressing the camera like we are the judge. And they're both pleading their case. She's pleading why she wants to leave. He's pleading why he wants her to stay. And that's what really sets the movie off. And from there, it just goes in a lot of different interesting directions. So
yeah, that opening scene was probably my favorite scene because it was, I don't know what I expected. I've never seen an Iranian film before. I've seen foreign films, but not an Iranian film. And to start off on such a kind of they have an opening sequence where they have like the title of the film and some of the actors' names, and you're shown like a photocopier making copies of, I
forgot all about the opening credits.
Which was interesting. Thought ran a little long, but interesting. And then they cut straight from that, and I think no music. If I'm remembering correctly, except for at the very end when their titles, and that was the only music I think that was in the film at all.
Any like orchestral music, obviously,
soundtrack
natural
type
music,
stuff, right? So that opening of the film, I was like, that's kind of an interesting way to start off a film. You just show a black screen when you just see these flashes of light and the documents being photocopied, and then you go straight from that to this front-on shot of these two people talking to the camera, but like you're saying, they are talking to an individual, a judge per se, and they're pleading their cases. And it's brutal.
Yeah.
The emotion, you don't have any time to kind of warm up to what's going on. They just cut right to what you would assume is kind of towards the end of this thing going on. And they're just, obviously there's a lot of motion going on. And you have this disembodied voice
Posing questions
and kind of drawing the meeting to a
really,
close.
it's the kind of questions we as the viewer are wanting to ask.
Right.
Basically, they've put us in the position of being that judge to hear these two people. And we're asking, as an audience, we're asking the same questions this invisible judge is asking. Why do you want to do this? Don't you think this would be a bad thing? Will this hurt the kid? Type of thing. It's, it was just a really interesting opening to a film like this.
Yeah. And kind of dumping you right into the culture as well, which makes sense. It was made in Iran, made for, people in Iran. So you don't really get like why certain things are that way. It's just like, okay, here it is. And like the woman wants a divorce. And the judge is asking certain questions. And at the end, he's like, okay, well, no, you're not going to get a divorce and next. And it's like, okay. Yeah. And she's like, well, consider it. She's like, yes. And I heard you and next. It's just like, it's very cut and dry. And you're just, it's just very surprising.
And there again, going into the film, that's all I knew.
Right.
It's a film about a couple that's going through a divorce. And that's it. And really, you've got another hour and 55 minutes where things just go a little bonkers.
Yeah. They just continue to get worse and worse and worse.
All in all, this is a film for anybody who it's tough to talk about all the, the details involved in the plot because it does start to, and that's part of the, I hate saying fun because it was not a fun movie, but part of the enjoyment of the film is you don't know where it's going to go. So we don't want to talk too much about the details, but suffice it to say, some situations occur that are somewhat related to the fact that this couple is now separated.
Correct.
Things start to happen in their lives that get them in a downward spiral, get them in a really bad situation. Ultimately, though, the whole story revolves around the fact that, you've got this young daughter who's right in the middle of the whole thing. And I think really they're trying to show off that she is the one that in the end, and even the last scene, which we won't go into, but the last scene is pretty much hinges on her as a daughter in the middle of this situation and the impact of this all taken on her.
Well, another key, there again, skirting around, revealing too much about the movie. Because they are separated, he has to hire a housekeeper to help. And
to take care of the grandfather, his father that's with Alzheimer's. Right. And since the wife is no longer at home to take care of him.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And, her coming in and that whole situation about hiring people and all that kind of the minutia of doing all that in Iran, that's also interesting. And that ends up causing problems as well.
Yes.
And what's particularly good about the movie is that you see that there's no easy answer. There's not really a bad guy, I feel like, in the movie. Which, in a typical, more Hollywood movie, I guess, you would immediately pick sides. You'd be like, oh, well, okay, the woman's the bad person trying to get a divorce. The husband's the good guy. And then, the daughter's caught in between. It's like that's more of a typical thing. But with this, you kind of see all sides and you don't really... I don't know, and it's just a struggle. From the opening scene, you're just kind of like, okay, and it just gets worse and worse. And all these bad situations that keep happening are unfortunate. It could have been called like Iran, a series of unfortunate events or whatever, because that's what, except it doesn't have Jim Carrey and it's not funny. But it's just one thing after the other.
Well, I agree. There's no bad guy here. There's also no good guy. I mean, it's everybody makes mistakes in this film. Every single character, maybe with the exception of the kids, make a mistake. Oh, well, yeah, the one kid did make a mistake.
One of the not earth-shattering, but one of the just devastating, the film's depressing. It's very sad. It's about people going through a divorce, bad situations, a father with Alzheimer's that, it's very sad. And at one point, the daughter of the couple that's getting the separation, her name is Terme, I believe. I'm going to try to pronounce it that way, but Terme. Let's say. She has been observing what's going on between her parents. And, of course, she's caught in between. But at one point, she is called in to answer some questions from this judge, and she lies.
Well, okay, she lies, but can you really can you really say she did something at that point for her age, did something wrong? I guess my thing is she had to respond.
Did she do something wrong?
She had to respond to somebody else having made a very poor decision.
Right. But she knows when she goes into this is like we're skating on very thin ice, but I'm going to try to
We're
do
doing
this
okay
without
so far.
revealing
We're doing
stuff.
all right. Yeah.
I agree. Her father, she confronts her father
Yes.
about something that has happened, and he ends up admitting, yes, maybe the truth has been skewed a little bit. I
lied and did something wrong.
And you can see the effect on her face. Later, the judge is asking her a question, and he tells the husband, "Okay, go get your daughter." Now, to his credit, he goes to get his daughter, who's waiting out in the hallway. He just says, "Come in here."
He doesn't try to convince her to lie or
He does not bait her.
anything.
Does not convince her to lie. But the judge, she goes in and sits down with the judge, and the judge says, "Well, what did he tell you to say?" Basically, and she's like, "Oh, nothing. He told me to come in here." And he said, and then he starts to ask her the questions. But the ease with which she then lies, to me,
there's no ease to that. She lies. She commits a sin herself. However, the only reason she committed that sin is because she has already felt the weight of the world going on in this whole situation, this whole film, this whole story we're following. She knows if she doesn't lie, she knows what's going to happen
right
to the people involved. It's some bad things. She lies not because she wants to, not because she feels like it's the thing she has to do. She does it because she doesn't see
she
any
feels
other
like she
option.
has to.
Yeah.
Right.
So I still say the kids are the only ones who don't make a conscious bad decision in this film.
It was the only decision that she felt like she could make. But I'm saying, like, yeah, don't the other young girl of the housekeeper. Yeah, I would agree. She's completely innocent.
Yeah.
This girl at that point, though, she then becomes just as bad off.
She becomes
as everybody
unaccomplished
else.
to the whole situation.
I don't blame her because she.
Well, overall, I guess
Back
the
into a
message is, I could watch every character in this film and understand completely why they were making the decisions they made.
Yeah.
Not agreeing with them and realizing that when they made them, yes, some of them were very poor decisions. But I could sympathize with every single character in this film. Even the ones you would think would be the, quote, bad guys. I totally sympathize with them. The husband of the housekeeper.
Oh.
Who was pretty, very ill-tempered, short fuse, was the one that you were probably the most scared of at times. I still sympathize with him every step of the way in his situation and what he was going through.
I do too.
Every character.
I'm going to skate on some thin ice here again because I thought it was a really interesting development. Like you say, does have a hot temper.
Mm-hmm.
There's questions about abuse with him. To me, how that is turned on its head at the very end of the film when there's this kind of sit-down meeting.
Yeah.
And how he exits that meeting. He does something, and it gives you a window on what kind of abuse might really be going on.
Yep.
And I thought that was fascinating. There again, like you're saying, we're skating on thin ice, but there are some surprises, some interesting twists and turns in what seems like a pretty simple movie, and it is. But I thought that was very revealing, and you're saying there's just no clear-cut bad guy.
Well,
you understand why people have done things that they are.
Let me tell you one thing I really admired about the film that I think people who go out to see it, be aware of. There are things in this film that happen throughout the film, small, casual mentions of things, little bits of dialogue that do not seem in the slightest bit important.
Right.
And come back later to be extremely important.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about this film is that if this was a typical Hollywood film, when these little bits of dialogue happen or little events happen, you know how it would be. There would be this crescendo of music. And it would be like a focus on this scene happening in a shot. There's none of this. I mean, really, when later in the film some things come out about what a person said, you honestly had to scan in your brain. Do I even remember that happening?
Right.
Oh, yeah, I think I barely do in the background of one of the scenes.
Right.
That's the way it ought to be. I mean, there was no big moments of revelation. I mean, it was kind of like, well, do you remember when this person said this? And now you as the audience were like, wait a minute, I think I do remember that.
And
it was very subtle stuff, which I loved.
Right. And I appreciate that as well. And that just added to the realism that you were just as confused as they were. And you were also just as confused as probably the judge is, who's sitting there and trying to understand, okay, what's happened? What's going on? And yeah, by the end of the 2-hour movie, you're so tired and so emotionally drained. You're just like, I don't know how this is I don't know how this is gonna play out. I will say that if I had to pick a flaw with the film, I liked it. Overall, I liked the film. I wouldn't recommend it because I wouldn't want to put anybody through that on purpose.
I think you mentioned during the discussion afterwards, it's a one-timer for you.
Yeah, it's a one-timer. I'm glad I saw it. Last night, I couldn't even say if I liked it, but now that I've had a little distance and I've had a chance to sleep, to try to sleep off some of the depressing stuff, I did like it. It was extremely well made, extremely well acted. But yeah, I would never want to see it again. Yeah. Although I'm interested to see if I did have to see it again, how those little bits of information, if I could basically to prove if what I felt like at the end of the movie about how things worked out, if that's actually how it worked out. I mean, to see if I could actually follow the through line.
See, that's where I'm actually curious, because there is a scene. And there again, we're not spoiling anything here, but just if you have a chance to see this film, understand there is a scene early in the film, what you would think is a throwaway scene.
Oh, yeah.
Lasts maybe 30 seconds tops.
Right.
In the first 15 minutes of this film that have huge consequences for the rest of the film.
Yes.
And that's what's crazy about it, is that you honestly, as an audience member, are even trying to remember back to even see if you can remember that scene at all.
Right.
Because your perception of it is just as important as the characters in the film.
Right.
Anyway, fascinating. I probably had more of an admiration. Well, it sounds like you admired the film. You don't want to see it again. I would actually still want to see this film again, because I'm more curious on a second viewing how it holds up, and me knowing where it's going, what I can pick out of this. I'll tell you the things that just blew me away about this film.
I was going to say the one thing I didn't like,
okay.
But then we'll continue to go on the positives, because we've kind of been really positive about it. I felt the scene where the daughter is lying to the judge. Yeah. I felt like it was almost too perfect. Like the only way it would have worked that perfectly was in a script, because she goes in there and you're nervous. You know, you're nervous for her. And the way she calmly and collectly, pretty much like flawlessly, is able to lie, and he asks her certain questions, trying to trip her up, and the way she's able to just weave this lie so flawlessly. But at the time, I was like, and it was only after the movie finished, I was kind of like, yeah, the rest of the movie is very real. Everything feels very true to life. People are making unfortunate decisions. It feels very real. That one scene, even though it's a very interesting scene, it rang a little false because it was too perfect. Like everything was said in just a perfect manner. I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes sense. I didn't pick that up, but I could see where you're coming from on that. The one thing I would say that I was concerned about after the film, I thought was a fault, but the more I've thought about it, it's probably not. Actually, it's probably to the film's credit in the long run. Many of the scenes seem to be, after a while, very repetitive.
Yeah.
In other words, the same discussion happening over and over and over and over again between various people.
Sure.
At first, that started to bother me. I'm like, okay, are we having this dialogue again?
Right.
But then, I thought about it afterwards. The realism of the situation, think about it in our own personal lives. Something is going on in our life. That's pretty much what consumes our dialogue for days. So the fact is, that was a very real aspect of this film, is that this husband, this wife, the husband and another person, they're having the same dialogue over and over again. You feel like it's being very repetitive, but it really is very true. Yeah. This is what their lives are like for these days following these events. So overall, my only negative turned out to be probably a strength of the film in a way. It's just something going into this. If you watch this film, be aware. Yeah, it's coming across very repetitive at times, but keep in mind, this is a very, very true, realistic portrayal of people going through a very difficult situation.
Right.
Anything on the acting side? Anybody you want to call out? Any kudos you want to give out there? Because I got a couple.
Yeah, basically overall, I thought everyone was really strong. The two leads, The husband and the wife, the two leads, I thought were really good. Even though he didn't have to do a lot, the Alzheimer's grandfather.
Well, yeah,
awesome.
I was going to say, to pull off a very, very realistic portrayal of an elderly person going through Alzheimer's was really well done.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say the lead actor, Payman Modi. There again, not familiar with anything. My understanding is he was actually born in America, but moved to Iran when he was very young. Fascinating. I was mesmerized by this guy the whole film because he had, to me, all the parts were extremely difficult roles.
Sure.
He probably had the most difficult one because he at times had to balance that. Do you admire him or do you hate him?
Right.
He had so many things going on with so many different people, relationships wise. Yes, he's caring for his grandfather and he's very caring and soothing. And he seems to be very, very good with his daughter for the most part, although he makes some bad mistakes with her as well.
Sure.
You don't quite know the history of he and his wife, why they've gotten to this point in their life where they are. Then he has this situation with his housekeeper, then the housekeeper's husband. He is having to deal with a lot of interactions.
Right.
And he pulled it off. I mean, I just was mesmerized by his performance. I thought I could sympathize with him and I could hate him all at the same time. And
Sure.
that's a real sign of a good, strong performance, I think.
I'll say, I thought all the performances were strong. The daughter, I thought she was really good. Which she turns out the daughter of the couple that's getting a divorce is in real life, it's the director's daughter.
Yes.
And I thought she did a really good job. Her facial expressions were just very, I don't know, they were perfect.
Yeah.
I will say that, I guess if I'm going to point out another flaw, and it tends to be the actress, I wasn't as impressed with the wife,
No.
Samine or whatever. But there again, she was, to me, in a more typical film, she would have been portrayed as the bad guy, I think.
Yep.
And in this film, she wasn't, but there was not a lot of depth to her just because there wasn't.
I thought her character, for this being a film about a separation, I mean, obviously the focus was so much more on the husband than the wife.
Right.
I actually thought the wife's story was a little shortchanged.
Right.
I was left with more questions about her
Sure.
than I was him.
Right.
And for her being so prominent in the trailer and movie posters and all that, I really thought she was going to have equal screen time, and she really doesn't.
Right.
She is much more of a supporting actress, I
True.
think, in this film.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think actually the daughter maybe even has more screen time than the mother does.
yeah,
So
probably.
I agree with you on that one. That one was a little, I guess I was more just concerned about the lack of depth of her character in the film than maybe necessarily her acting.
And I guess a strength of the screenplay in general is that in a more typical screenplay, her thinly drawn character would have also been just depicted as the bad guy.
Yeah.
Whereas she was a little shortchanged, but they managed to not make her the bad. They developed her just enough to where you weren't hating her. So,
Well, overall, I think it was a very impressive film. First Iranian film to ever win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Picture.
right.
We actually were honored to have in our attendance last night at the screening a couple from Iran who were able to talk afterwards a little bit about some of the cultural things that we saw in the film and how the film was being perceived in Iran, which was really interesting as well. I think it's going to be a tough one for people to watch on a home DVD, unfortunately. And I hate to say that because it is a very rapid fire dialogue with subtitles.
Yeah,
and it's
big
just,
screen helps with that.
Yeah, the big screen does help on that. So I will caution anybody wanting to watch this on DVD. It may be a tough one to follow because the dialogue is so rapid fire with multiple people talking all over each other and it's all subtitled.
And in one sense, you don't need the dialogue or you don't need the subtitles because you can kind of tell
You get an
emotions
idea.
and everything because the actors are so good. And the situation's familiar. It's a divorce. You can tell what's going on. But because there are little twists and things you need to be aware, not twists per se, but plot points
Yes.
that happened, you do need to read the subtitles, every single one of them. You do need to be aware of what's being said.
You've
and
got to
what's being
be,
said.
he cannot be the slightest bit sleepy during
No,
this film.
no.
So.
I got to, we mentioned the opening because I have another favorite scene. We mentioned the opening scene with them addressing the camera and kind of stating their cases for the divorce as a favorite scene. Do you have any other scenes that stand out to you? Because I have one that I was going to mention.
Well, yeah, you mentioned it actually earlier. Towards the end, the scene where the two families and other associates, it seems like, or other members of the family all get together for kind of a, let's come together and let's settle this and let's kind of end this whole situation.
Gotcha.
And everybody's sitting on the floor and it's more of a, it's just a very odd situation. I mean,
Yes.
in that these two families that have gone through this very complex legal
Tense.
criminal situations are now coming together to basically settle it.
Yeah,
But
murder is
then-
thrown out at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And that scene I thought was really impressive
Yeah.
because it's just the husband just dropped a bombshell of a question. Everybody kind of gets a little out of sorts. There's a lot of backdoors kind of dialogue happening.
Yep.
The fact that it's just all these people sitting around the floor, like looking at each other, trying to deal with this final situation. I really like that scene because it was extremely tense.
Yeah.
You did not know where it was going to go and how it was going to end. So it's kind of the bookends. I think the very first scene, that opening the couple minutes we talked about, which was really impressive. And then the one at the end, to me, those were the scenes that still really stand out for me.
A short or of that final scene that you're talking about, there's a piece of that final scene that I guess was one of the more devastating moments of the film for me. Well, there were two. After the daughter is going home from testifying, and her father's driving the car, and she has lied. She is crying, and that is sad to see that because you can know she's it's kind of a fall from innocence or whatever, and she's upset. Second thing is during that meeting at the end that you're talking about, we have the older daughter, Terme, from the couple that's getting separated. Then we have the young daughter of the housemaid or whatever.
Housekeeper and her husband.
Yeah. And they're both, and the daughters make eye contact.
Yeah.
And the look that goes back and forth between those daughters, someone last night at the screening suggested it was a look of like sympathetic, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing?
Like they wanted to go hug each other.
Right.
I didn't get that.
vibe
I didn't either.
at all.
I actually got resentment.
I got, sadness and sorrow from the older daughter, but from the young daughter of the housekeeper, to me, the look was like, you are an evil person.
Yep.
And they had played together, and it was just like because of what her parents would say, the whole story, she was just like, you are Satan.
Yep.
It was just like, and that was, to see that fall from innocence in that little child's eyes was incredible.
I agree. Some very, very powerful scenes. Very, very strong movie. Just going to be prepared. You're going to need a little pick me up afterwards because
Yes.
it does not
Go
go.
get ice cream.
Yeah, right. go. What's a good film we could recommend as a double feature after a separation? I mean, there's got to be a perfect
The
film.
Muppet movie? The Muppets
yeah, the
that
Muppets
just came out? Yeah, it's
okay,
on
so that's what
DVD.
you need to do. A separation should be coming out on DVD in a couple months, maybe. You rent a separation, but make sure you have the Muppets ready to go at a moment's notice right at the end of the film.
Right.
Because you're going to need it to kind of cleanse the palate and come out with a happy mood. So that's a
Exactly.
very good recommendation. I like that, Chris. So that's the review of A Separation. Should be out on DVD pretty soon. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's all about some movie news. We're going to be throwing out some names like Tarantino, DiCaprio, and of course, the Olsen twins.
Which is excellent.
Yeah, you're excited about that, right,
Oh,
Chris?
definitely.
All right, stay tuned after the break.
We'll get back to your show in a moment. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Find out more at themesh.tv and give us feedback on what you like. And now, as promised, back to your show.
So I don't have any movie news as normal, so it's all
You don't have any movie news, so it's all me?
Actually, hold on
Nothing
a second.
all interesting do you want to talk about?
Ryan Johnson mentioned on Twitter that he had previews for Looper out, and I dodged those. I'm going to try to stay clean for that one.
I saw the trailer.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't tell you a whole lot, so it's
Oh, it
worth seeing.
doesn't? Okay.
It's worth seeing.
I don't know, for movies that I'm really going to go see anyway, and I'm really kind of excited about, if I have a chance, like the Batman stuff, I don't seek that out online, but if I'm in a movie theater, I'm not going to get up and run out. So,
You're not.
yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. So, if I go see, I'm going to
Trailers, no!
I'm going to go see Hunger Games,
Yeah.
hopefully this weekend. And if for some reason Looper, which I know it's not, if the trailer happened to be on before that, I'd be like, cool.
I'm so bad. I mean, trailers are just... Trailers are my crack. I mean, I shouldn't watch them. I should not spoil the movie, but I cannot help it. I love trailers so much. I actually think trailers are their own art form.
Oh, they are.
I mean, there's so many trailers that are so much better than the movie themselves. So,
True.
I look at it that way. I'm more interested in seeing the trailer as how does that work for me? How does that move me? How, even if I never see the movie. So, yeah. Well, since we're talking trailers, actually, you know what? Never mind. These have nothing to do with trailers.
Have nothing.
Okay, so we were just on a
the
tangent.
Avengers trailer. Is it good? Sometimes that's the reason I would see it. Like all the superhero
To see if you
movies,
want to see the movie or not.
right? Because it's like the Avengers. Like I never saw Thor. I didn't see Captain America. It's like, oh, okay. But like the Avengers, I don't have any interest.
Really?
I know my kids are probably going to want to see it. I'm just, I don't know why. Because I like superheroes. I just don't like Marvel. I like Batman. But
You're
like the
weird.
Avengers, I'm like, oh, maybe this would be good. And so if I see the trailer, maybe
it's Josh Whedon.
Right,
which
right.
That right alone is interesting enough. So
but
we talk.
Are you really a big fan of his?
I'm not a big fan of his. I'm just more curious that they put somebody in charge that I would not see as being in charge of a big blockbuster franchise,
And who's respected in the comic book
and who is
community.
is a good writer. I mean, he's got some great dialogue and great scripting with it. To put that into a big blockbuster film. Did you ever see Firefly? You saw Firefly, right?
Yeah.
You didn't like it. You didn't like Firefly, the whole TV show,
see,
or Serenity, the movie.
I was so distracted by the production value and all this other stuff in the
Really?
movie, which Serenity was the movie, right?
Yeah, Serenity was the movie.
I thought it was like bad.
Goodness. All right, so far you've just told me that you don't like Marvel and you didn't like Serenity. Do I even
Right.
know you?
Right. And
are
Firefly,
you?
I saw like 1 or 2 episodes of it, and I liked it okay. I wasn't just like blown away.
Really? God, you're
Yeah,
so
but I
weird.
know he's really well respected. And I never liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which he was responsible
Well, see, I was
for.
never really into that show, but I admired what he was doing with it from afar. So I'm just more curious. I'm going to be in Thailand when the Avengers comes out. So I've already promised my boys they are not allowed to go see it with their grandmother until I get back. So we'll go and do
Got
that.
you.
Maybe I'll do a little kind of recap review for us when we get back together to record an episode.
Okay.
Let me talk about a couple films that I think you may actually have more of an interest in seeing than it sounds like the Avengers.
Okay.
One I know right offhand you're going to be very interested in seeing because we've talked about it a little bit briefly. The newest one from Quentin Tarantino,
Yes.
Django Unchained.
Oh, yeah.
How much do you know about this film?
I've heard things about it, but I've forgotten a lot of it. I just know it's supposed to be about slavery.
Yes.
And some of the actors involved is Jamie Foxx in there?
Jamie Foxx is in it.
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Oh,
one.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And,
I knew Jamie Foxx was, but
yeah, it's it's another Tarantino film. It's going to be a very very interesting cast as he always tries to pull
Right.
together on that. What
Wow.
I know you and I'm asking this question even though I know the answer.
Sure.
And maybe just to kind of recap your take on Tarantino in general, because I don't think we've talked about him on this show before. I don't believe. Tell me, how do you feel about Mr. Tarantino, and what's been your favorite film of his that he's put out?
I really admire Tarantino. He is a really good writer and has a lot of really good ideas. But as well, I think he's a good director. And so, to compare him to Joss Whedon, I think Joss Whedon does have some interesting ideas. And he does kind of put his signature on things. I just don't think he's that good of a director, and he doesn't interest me as much. Whereas Quentin Tarantino, he has a signature style. He is a really good writer with dialogue, and I think he's an interesting director. And I'm pretty much a huge fan.
Well, what's your favorite?
My
Which one?
favorite film from him would probably be the one that he seemingly called his masterpiece, *Inglourious Bastards*.
Yeah. I'm totally with you
That
on
was
that.
really
You
good.
and I both, I think, felt the same way about that film. The thing is, I don't hear a lot of people talking about *Inglourious Bastards* and looking back at his film career right now. Pulp Fiction came up as an anniversary this past year, and a lot of people talking about it again. And I still hear a lot of people talking about Kill Bill, the 2 movies there.
And
But
I really liked, before *Inglourious Bastards*, Kill Bill was my
well, I'm
favorite
saying,
stuff.
I think
Yeah.
you and I are basically on the same track when it comes to Tarantino films, and that *Inglourious Bastards* is my favorite that he did. After that, it's Kill Bill. Probably number 1. I liked a little bit better than number 2, but I
Yeah.
love both of them.
Right.
And then Pulp Fiction comes in after that. I think where you and I differ, I think I hated Death Proof. You liked it better than I did.
Okay, I liked for what it was, the whole grindhouse thing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed, but I saw it in the theater. Did you see it in the theater?
No, I saw it on DVD.
And did you only see Death Proof?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, seeing the grindhouse experience where you saw Planet Terror and Death Proof together, and with all the commercials and everything, like
That's
a
probably my
true
problem.
experience.
Yeah.
But was it was it as great as stuff? Heck no.
Okay.
But
Well, and I admire Jackie Brown for what it is, but it was not a film I loved.
I'd like to revisit Jackie Brown. Maybe
yeah.
we should do that as one of our watches.
I think that's probably a good idea because that's the one that keeps coming back to me. I hear so many people talk so positively about it.
Right.
I remember seeing it, and I remember it not really hitting me
Did you
like
see it in the theater?
No.
See, I did, and I was still like,
Yeah, I still that one just didn't do it for me.
Right.
And then Reservoir Dogs, I still really like.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Overall, yes, I'm a big fan of his films, other than Jackie Brown,
Right.
and for me, other than Death Proof. But that was more of a theater experience than anything else.
Sure.
So I'm terribly, after Inglourious Basterds, I'm terribly excited to see whatever he does next.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that just like Inglourious Basterds, we don't really know what the film's about. And even if we think we know, it's probably going to be
It's not
completely
going to
different.
be. Yeah, just slavery, I think, and like a plantation
Like
type thing.
is either a released slave, either going back for revenge on a
Right.
former owner or something.
Something.
But
And I
just
guess
like
Fox plays the
just like
slave.
Inglourious Basterds, they sold it as, or the things we heard about it is, it's kind of a dirty dozen, like a military group that goes out and hunts Nazis. But that really wasn't the film that
No.
much. It was a lot more dialogue and
Right.
more drama than that. So there
Right.
again, I think we need to be prepared for anything. But I'm very, very anxious to see this movie now. Coming out on Christmas.
I mean, what better?
Yeah,
A slave
Merry
movie.
Christmas. Yeah.
I am really excited to see, which it surprises me. I'd heard Jamie Foxx, which I don't know. I think he's going to be like a young version of Sam Jackson with dialogue coming out of his mouth. You know,
Yeah.
like I see Tarantino, like it doesn't shock me. I'm like, yeah, I can see Jamie Foxx spewing Samuel Jackson type dialogue. So good fit. You know, that's cool. But what really surprises me is you say DiCaprio in that. I can't wait to see him use Tarantino dialogue. That's going to be very interesting for
Well,
me.
I'm just ready for DiCaprio to do something that really just blows me away. I think he's a really good actor. I'm not faulting the guy at all. I've gotten past my whole Leonardo DiCaprio is just some pinup boy who, happens to be a decent actor. No, he is a really good actor. I just don't think he has been as daring in his choice of films as he could be. Now, he did the whole J. Edgar thing for Clint Eastwood.
Which didn't do well, and I didn't
did not
see
do
it.
well.
I didn't see
Didn't
it.
get a lot of acclaim, and I heard it was not really, it could have been a real monumental performance for him, and it just really wasn't.
Got you.
I like the guy. I really do. I think he picks some good films. I just don't think he always picks interesting roles in good films.
I think, and I guess I was going to say that I really, really recently, I really liked him in Inception.
Yes.
But did I like his acting in Inception?
No.
Probably not. I just really liked the movie.
The movie
and he was good in
he
it.
chooses good movies.
And they seem to be semi-similar.
But his roles are very similar.
Right, and that's-
you look at him in The Departed.
Right.
Pretty straightforward. He's plays a cop, undercover cop guy.
Always intense people.
Yes.
Very intense.
Nothing aloof, nothing, a little different. That's what I'm kind of anxious to see. If he's playing, I think I actually heard, and I could be wrong on this. Please, listeners, let me know where I'm wrong. I'm ready for it.
Send the email.
Because my internet's not working on my iPad, so I cannot pull up any more details at the moment. But somewhere I thought I heard that he actually plays like the bad slave owner.
Awesome.
So, see, if that's true, that's what I want him to play. I want to see him play something so completely against type that I want to see him in a film where I hate him as a character.
I'd like to see him be really funny.
Yeah,
as
funny
well.
would be fun,
No,
too.
maybe not intentional. Like he doesn't know he's being funny, but we know because of the Tarantino dialogue, he is hilarious.
I agree.
Like,
I just think
that'd be awesome.
I like DiCaprio. I'm just anxious to see him do something different. And
Agreed.
if anybody's going to make him do something different,
Tarantino
will
Oh,
be the one to
totally.
do it. Okay,
Yeah.
good deal. All right, moving on to another news item, and I'm asking you more because I don't know much about this. I'm curious if you do. Old Boy. Did you ever see Old Boy? Japanese
is
film,
it
I
Park
believe?
Chan-wook
Yeah.
or whatever?
Uh-huh.
I did. Yes.
What's it about?
Wow. Okay. It's hard for me because I saw it a while ago, but it has kind of a surprise thing, so I don't want to ruin it.
It's like the main character doesn't really know, like he doesn't know who he is.
He's been in prison,
Okay.
and I'm not sure we know why, but he gets out.
he's trying to get vengeance on somebody.
Get vengeance and put together elements of his life and figure out what happened.
Good. That tells me all I need to know there.
And so it's like a revenge thing.
Well, they're remaking it.
I think I've heard that.
Okay. Spike Lee directing it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Spike Lee, Josh Brolin is in the lead.
What?
Yeah. Josh Brolin is in the lead as the main character. Elizabeth Olsen.
Okay. Tell me maybe she's been in. I recognize the name.
Marcy May Marlene.
Okay. I haven't seen that. Is there something else she's been? No, that was
pretty much
breakup thing. Okay.
I think she did that, and she did a little low budget horror film that.
Okay. I recognize the name, and I haven't seen.
Well, she's one of the Olsen twin, or not the twins, but she's one of the Olsen girls. She's the talented one of the Olsen group. Yeah, you don't know that?
No.
Elizabeth Olsen, who was Marcy May Marlene, which was about the cult movie.
You're talking about what's the name of that stupid sitcom that I did watch? John Stamos. Full House.
Don't let my wife hear that. She loves that show. Full House. Yeah.
So Full House twin is in Marcy May. I did not realize.
No. Okay, let me back up. Okay. She is a sister to the twins.
Oh.
She is not one of the twins.
Okay.
But she is in the same family.
I got you.
As the twins.
Okay. No, you were because that's Mary Kate and Ashley.
Mary Kate and Ashley. This is Elizabeth.
Wow.
Who is
got you.
Either I don't know if it's younger or older. I'm not sure. We really don't follow the Olsen clan.
No, but you
too
about blew my mind by saying that one of them.
Sorry about that. That would have been awesome, though.
That would have been incredible.
That would have been really cool if all of a sudden one of the Olsen twins emerges as this master actress. And and the
other one's like, "What about me?" Wow.
No, now instead the two of them are twins are looking at their sister and being like,
"Wow,
hey,
you're going to be legitimate instead of being on a silly sitcom." Yeah. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Sorry, I completely threw you off there.
You did.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to what we're saying. Elizabeth Olsen is in the film.
Okay.
But Spike Lee directing this movie. I'm very interested at this point. So there again, I'll kind of pose the same thing I did with Tarantino. I don't think we've talked about Spike Lee on our show before. Your take on
kind of
Mr.
fallen
Lee?
Off the radar since what was the World War II thing? The Miracle at St. Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw that. Yeah.
Spike Lee, my take on him, I think he's talented, but he kind of beats the drum over and over again at the same tight note about, race and everything, which is important, but, it's just, he doesn't really do a lot with the issue other than throw it out there and then kind of, but I did like Inside Man.
I didn't. See,
really?
No, not really.
Wow.
I thought, it got overhyped for me. It was a little bit of a letdown.
Okay.
I remember walking out of the movie just saying, so that was it? It just seemed a little slight to me, more than it should have been. There again, I'll admire Spike Lee. I don't like all of his films.
Right.
But I admire him as a filmmaker because he's definitely a very passionate filmmaker.
Sure.
He's willing to take a lot of chances. He's done some movies that I thought were completely against type at times. The 25th Hour. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
That was a good one. I really like that movie. Hasn't done much lately that I can recall. Miracle at St. Anna, I do recall, and I didn't care for, but I at least could appreciate what he was trying to do. I just thought it was a very flawed movie. So anyway, him doing Old Boy with Josh Brolin, Elizabeth Olsen, and they just announced who will be playing the person he's seeking vengeance on, and it's Charlton Copley, the guy from District 9, the main character in District 9.
Whoa.
He was also in the A-Team. He played Murdoch, I believe, Crazy Murdoch in the A-Team.
Right.
Yeah, very odd choice.
Yes.
I don't know this guy from anything but District 9. I never saw the A-Team. He was good in District 9.
Oh, yeah.
Very good character, but I don't know if I can see him as the mysterious man that Josh Brolin's seeking vengeance against, but
the more you talk about it, the more everything you said about Spike Lee, I agree with. And I guess to take back some of my words, he has actually kind of stepped out of the whole beating the drum of racism a little bit. 25th Hour was interesting and a kind of a departure for him. I just didn't really care for it that much. And it seems like you like it.
I did.
I felt like Inside Man was also a departure from the racism drum, but I really liked it, whereas it sounds
Not
like
so
you
much.
didn't. This new film, him doing Old Boy, A, it's a remake, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah.
B, it's surprising to me because the leads aren't African American, which surprises me.
Yes.
And and then the choice of his, not only are they white, but the choice of Josh Brolin, interesting, and then the guy from District 9, that's really interesting. So I'm fairly interested in seeing it.
Well, the reason I bring this up is A, it's Spike Lee, and B, I've never seen the original Old Boys, so I'm actually more interested now to go ahead and check it out before they finish the remake.
It's heavy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Pretty violent?
Well, the original, yes.
Okay, all right.
Let me just say there's a scene in a hallway with a hammer and using that as a weapon against like several attackers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm there.
And I think I'd heard somewhere, but I guess I had heard at one point they were remaking it. I didn't know the director, but is Steven Spielberg the producer of it?
Oh, I don't know that.
Okay, because I think I'd heard that and I was like, that's weird. But he's not directing it, which makes a lot of sense.
Tell me the answer, iPad. See,
I couldn't.
iPad has no internet connection right now, so
because
iPad
I could
is
not see
telling me the answer.
Spielberg directing that movie because that would be a big departure for Spielberg too. But Spike Lee, cool.
Yeah, no, I was anxious to hear about that. I mean, I'm all for directors trying something different, doing something maybe against type.
Yeah.
But still able to put in their, their own personal style. So that's our show for Footcandle Films. We did our review of A Separation, which Chris and I both wholeheartedly encourage you to check out, but maybe just one time. Not to see it on multiple viewings unless
you're a glutton for punishment.
Unless you're a glutton for punishment, exactly. And we recap some interesting movie news, a couple good movies to check out on the horizon. We're going to keep our eyes on. So, Chris, if people want to talk to us about this show or give us some feedback or ideas, are there ways they can do that?
They can come by my house as long as between the hours of like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No, actually, don't do that.
Actually, that would be really good. We came really close to giving your address out on the internet. That would be really dangerous.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So barring that option, what would be another way for them to reach you?
Well, one way is they can reach us. They can email us at info@themesh.tv.
That would be by electronic mail?
Yes.
Okay.
Assuming you have internet connection, which sometimes can be
my iPad did not today. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Or you can call and leave a message on our voicemail line at 828-619-0048.
And just keep in mind, when you call that number, we will not answer the phone.
Correct.
It'll go straight to a voicemail. So just be prepared to leave a message. We are not able to answer all the glutton of calls we get in every
That's
every
right.
day.
I mean, it's overwhelming.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Yeah.
And then, keep in mind, too, we know our show is awesome, but if you want to check out other shows, just go to themesh.tv, and we have tons of other podcasts you can check out on the network.
Can they also go back and listen to old episodes of us talking about movies?
They could.
Interesting. That's
but
good to know.
Keep in mind, if you do that and you catch up with like continuity errors that maybe we say we've never talked about Tarantino, just don't mention that to us because it would tear down our ego and we can't handle that. So
be nice to us.
Yeah,
post comments on the website. We love star ratings on iTunes. That's actually my favorite. I like star ratings. We need more of those. So lots of ways to get a hold of us. Please check out themesh.tv, as Mr. Fry indicated, and we'll be back next time talking about more movies, more new films, more movie news.
Something else, Alan, you'll have to fill in the details. We had the iPad giveaway is over, but we're doing this thing now where Keep North Carolina Beautiful and the likes. Yes. Fill me in on that. I'm still
basically the mesh is wanting to help support a good organization here in our area. Keep North Carolina Beautiful is the one we're choosing, and what we're doing is basing it on all of the new Facebook likes that the mesh gets.
Facebook, it's big, right?
It's getting there. I hear it's catching on with the kids nowadays.
Excellent.
Yeah, Facebook. Check it out if you haven't seen that. It's going places. But we are asking for people to check us out on Facebook at The Mesh. The Mesh. If you go click the little like button, every like generates another 25 cents towards our donation to Keep North Carolina Beautiful. So we'd love nothing more than to write them a nice big fat check because of all the Facebook likes we get for The Mesh. So
got you.
Very good. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today. Thank you, Chris, as always, for enjoying a little coffee with me and talking over some movies. We'll be back next time. Take care, and we'll see you at the movies.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.